Welcome to the Autosportradio.com 2020 show. It's the first time I've remembered that when I started. Tonight's show is presented, as always, by Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the NTT IndyCar Series, and SVRA. A couple things to mention. I'm sure that everyone in the house had a fantastic holiday, did they not? Just to spend time. I know Mr. and Mrs. Miller were on the left coast. As you can see from Mrs. Miller, she spent a lot of time in the sun and with their kids and grandkids. Want to mention that coming up on the 18th is a double day. During the day is the horsepower memorabilia show that's at the Clarion Hotel just west of the town on Crawfordsville Road on the north side of Crawfordsville. And also on the 18th is the Chili Bowl. It will be telecast, and it will be in here. If you want to come in, you've already got some reservations. If you want to come in, come on in. And tell your waitress or tell Brenda if you want to come and how many people so she can save you a table. I've already got a table saved. So get it done quickly. So that's the 18th. During the day out at the Clarion Hotel will be the horsepower memorabilia show, and then at night is the Chili Bowl. I want to remind you, if you need a dentist and you want to get a good one and get good service, you got to go to the Indy Dental Clinic. Dr. Jack Miller and Dr. Liz Lewis have a phenomenal practice. Make an appointment. Give them a call at 317-846-6125. And I also want to mention that there was a button flashed around her last May honoring the 100th year since Howdy Wilcox won the 500. There were buttons passed out in here, and I want to mention that his grandson, Brian Wilcox, is with us tonight, sitting over here. If you want to find out what these guys and gals like about driving an Indy car, you can take a two-seater ride at the Indy Racing Experience. Go online to IndyRacingExperience.com and sign up, or you can call Shonda at 317-243-7171. If it's time for you to buy insurance for your home, your car, or commercial property, just give Mike Pardee at VP Insurance a call. He'll help you with anything you need, and when you have a problem, he's right there with you. His number is 317-248-0070. They're located at 5004 West 16th Street. Now, my first guest is a gentleman that I think everyone is happy to see and happy to hear. He's got a ride. He's driving the street and road courses and the Indianapolis 500 for Ed Carpenter Racing. Needless, I don't have to say who it is. Please welcome Conor Daly.
Thank you, guys.
See,
it's the nicest reception any crowd has ever given me. I appreciate that.
I told you today when I texted you, people are coming. They ain't here to see me. They're here to see you.
I don't know. You're pretty famous.
Oh, yeah, sure. I saw my name written on an outhouse wall one day, so I guess I am pretty famous. So how you doing? It's got to feel good to say you got a ride.
Yeah, no, honestly, super happy. It was a really interesting sort of after Laguna Seca. It was really it was a tough few weeks. Just kind of, obviously we've seen it's been like a really rough off season for a lot of people, and I thought my name was going to be included in that list too, which is really crazy. But this sport is pretty. It's not the nicest of worlds at times, as we all know. But yeah, thankfully in the end it all went the right way. But it could have gone another way. So I'm just happy that all the right decisions were made, and the I guess the good guys finally won a battle, I guess, which is nice.
I know when Ed Carpenter announced that they were hiring you, he said, "We've heard a lot about it, and now we've done it. We've got him in."
Well, to be fair, I wouldn't be there without the U.S. Air Force. So
well, yeah.
Ed hired me because I have a great sponsor with me. That's why. So
yeah, but
that's the business that we're in. But
you still have to perform.
Yes, yeah, no,
you can do that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, no, it's an awesome relationship to kind of keep keep moving along. I mean, the U.S. Air Force have, it's going to be year 3, which is cool. And every year they've invested more in the sport because of the reaction the fans have had, the people that, buy the merch, the response we get on social media. I mean, everything, all of that does count. And like, I really didn't think it didn't. It did count for a while, but it actually does now. Like when they look at the numbers of what they put into the sport and then what they get out of it, a lot of it comes from the social media, and that's a really big thing for them right now, because they're really after the millennial generation, right? They're after the young people, and that's where they live, is the internet. So it's been cool to see the response for that, and it's been cool to see how everyone here responds to what the car looks like, and what the fact that they're there, and they're the incredible people that show up there, thanking them, and being just saying anything to anyone from the U.S. Air Force at the racetrack. It goes somewhere. So I appreciate that, because this is a team effort.
And I also have to assume that when you make appearances at various places, they sign people up to join the Air Force, which is, I guess, again, has got to be part of what they're looking for.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, the big thing for the Air Force is when they set up inside the Indianapolis Motor Speedway or whatever race it is, they had, I think, 3 or 4 major activations last year. One of them at Road America, a small one at COTA. But all the people that run through there, like, our races are really well attended. Like, we have, for the most part, really well attended races, and that's thanks to all of our fans, which is really cool. And that helps. That helps the whole program. So, they're going to have more and more activations next year, I think, starting at St. Pete. St. Pete's a big one for them. So anytime you see one of their, setups, definitely go and talk to those people, because that helps me. That helps the program. And thankfully, I think it's an interesting deal, right? Because this sport is it's so expensive, but at some point, the Indy 500 costs a lot of money, and that's the biggest event. But if you want to do like another race, it's also a lot of money, but there's not as much there's not as much TV, there's not as much reward for that. So it was kind of like a situation which you always dream of hearing. It's like, I think we need to invest more to get more out of it, which is exactly right. Because, like, if you do, there is a bigger chance for more and more. I get to do 13 races instead of 1 or 2, you know what I mean? And it's like essentially gambling. You hope it goes well, but you could catch on fire before the green flag starts, and then you never know what happens. So it's really interesting that they see the benefit to being involved in IndyCar, which is really cool. And thankfully, the way this deal worked out with Ed, it's obviously not a full season, but thankfully, since it's teamed with Ed, the budget numbers are not as big as they could be, so it all fit together business-wise like perfectly. And Ed's an awesome guy, so I've been bothering him for years about driving for him, and so now we've had a lot of fun so far. I really enjoy going into the shop. I've been there every day this week so far, and it's just a great place, good group of people, and everyone seems to be pretty pumped there, which is cool.
Now you're going to miss 5 races, ovals.
Well, right now I'm doing 13 of 17. I'm pretty sure I'm going to do 14, but I mean, that's only because I think positively and I want to do Gateway. So but I don't know how that's going to happen. I have to find someone to pay for that one, which I think I will, but we'll see.
Is there any chance that you would be, as you were noted this year, super replacement?
I don't think so. I mean, it would be really weird to be doing 13 with one team and then sliding over to another team. I wouldn't want to do that, because it's just, that then breaks the continuity that you've got with your team. And I mean, yes, it would be awesome to do the full season, but there's no sense in wasting a weekend, or I don't know. That's just something that I've thought about, yes, and everyone keeps asking me about it. But I think you take what you've got right now, and there's no sense to stretch it or ruin a relationship with a team that's giving you really the most of the season, right?
Plus, I got to think that if you perform well with Ed Carpenter Racing, the chances next year of the Air Force stepping up for a full season might help.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's a lot of money, so we'll see. I mean, you never know. I mean, I get to do the first 7 races of the season in a row, so like that's really a good start to the championship. So you kind of get a good idea of, I haven't been to these tracks in 2 or 3 years, some of them, but like, and the car is going to be quite different with the aeroscreen. It's a lot of weight added, so there's going to be a bit of a a learning phase there. But I mean, if the first 7 races go really well and you're like in the top 5 in the championship, I mean, you never know, right? I mean, that would obviously be ideal. But yeah, we kind of have championships within a championship. We got the road and street courses that you can add up all the points at the end of the year and see sort of where you stack up, and then through the first 7 races, if it all goes well, you see where you're at and kind of be judge from there. But we've got what we've got, and we're gonna do the best we can with that.
I have said this numerous times, and I wholeheartedly believe it. You are arguably one of the more popular drivers in the series.
Thank you.
And I say that, yeah.
Thanks.
Last year at St. Pete, a friend of mine and his wife were down, and we were walking through the paddock area, and she stopped. She said, "Is that Conor Daly?" I said, "Yeah." "I want to meet him." "Oh, he won't talk to me." I said, "Yeah, he will." "Well, he's talking to somebody. He won't talk." I said, "Yes, he will. Wait." So she stood there, and she's all, "Ooh." And of course, when he was done, I walked over, and he foolishly said, "Oh, I know you."
Yeah, I do.
"You again," and introduced Deb, and she was thrilled to death. But I've seen this guy when he's not driving. He's just there, walking down. People stop for his autograph, shake his hand. Phenomenal. I think, you are a very popular driver, and I think it's great that you got a good ride this year, and so people can see you all the time.
Thanks. No, I mean, it's definitely a great situation. I mean, it's you just got to take advantage of it. So that's the plan. I mean, I've been driving, all of 2019, like my life is on the line, and every race could maybe help or it could hurt, and then I think that's helped. And for the races that we did have last year, I was really happy. Like, I was pretty satisfied with sort of reestablishing my confidence. I guess confidence was a big part of the month of May, rebuilding that, and yeah, I mean, I feel ready to go. I really do. I mean, there's we're going to have an appropriate amount of testing. 2 days in Austin, probably another day at Sebring before St. Pete. At least 4 to 6 simulator days before the season starts. So the good thing about Ed Carpenter Racing is they don't cut any corners, for sure. I mean, it's as maximum preparation as we're possibly allowed to have, which is really cool. I haven't had that ever for any team that I've driven for, even when I've been full time. So we've always either cut corners on simulator time or not done as much testing as possible with coin, and so now you really will have that, which is going to be cool. So yeah, it's up to me to take advantage of that, for sure. But I think we have the tools, so it's just up to me to do it. So I can't wait.
Will you have Ed's engineer?
Yes, yeah, Pete.
Have you worked with him before?
No, I have not. I just met him like around Thanksgiving. But yeah, he's a good guy. I mean, they've had their same 2 engineers for a while now, and I mean, the guys that make the cars go fast at Indy, for sure, and the core group of people. I mean, a lot of those guys, heck, some of them came from Panther, like when Doug, my stepdad, co-owned Panther. I mean, I knew some of those guys since I was a kid, so it's really cool to see some of them again. And I mean, everyone on that team I know. I've known them from a distance, and I've known some of them, up close and personal. But it's cool to. I mean, this whole paddock I've grown up around, so I pretty much know everyone. But now I've driven for every single team except for Penske and Ganassi, so it's I think I've made my way around. And I almost drove for Ganassi. You can ask Mike about this in 2011, so that would have been really funny, just for one race. But I almost knocked out all the teams. We'll see.
What's your thinking now with the stewardship of the Speedway and the series and IMS production changing hands? What are you thinking? What are you hearing from your other compadres in the paddock?
Well, I know Doug, my stepfather, has been at the Speedway every morning at 6:30 and home at 10:30 at night. So he's been really, really busy. My mother doesn't see him anymore, but that's what Roger requires, I guess. I mean, it's going to be different. It's going to be good, I hope. I mean, I had a nightmare the other night that I won the 500 and a Penske car finished second, and I got DQ'd for some reason. It was a real nightmare. I was like, wow, what's happening? But I don't know why. That was a real nightmare. I woke up and I was like, Yikes. I don't know if that's good or not. But I mean, Roger's an awesome guy. I think he's obviously a incredible steward for the sport. I think he cares about it. But obviously, he's got certain opinions that, he's a billionaire for a reason, right? So there's going to be some things that we're going to see that are just going to be like, well, that's different. But maybe it'll work. I don't know. I think I'm excited to see, basically, the first couple decisions, right, when he's in office. I want to see, what's the first decision that's going to be made? What's the second decision going to be made? What happens when we get to COTA for the open test? What's going to be different about that? Because that's media day for us. So that's, all the drivers dressed up, and what's going to be different? Is there anything going to be different? So there's a lot that's going to happen this year, which I think is going to be really interesting, but it has to be good. I mean, the series is strong. I mean, even today, you saw that article about Sage Karam and Dreyer Reinbold potentially doing more races, which I think is really cool. And, more teams, more people getting involved, Dragon Speed doing more races. I think there's always, good things that are happening for the sport, but then also, we've got to make sure that we take advantage of every moment on TV and every race weekend that we've got, for sure.
What I found interesting now, since NBC really got into it with both feet, I don't go to as many races as I used to, but I got the NBC Gold package. And I've noticed that the television cameras follow not only the leader, they follow the cars that are in the race, because they've got sponsors and they need coverage. I mean, they want to see their name out, and that's happening.
I hope so.
I hope next week I'm going to have Terry Lingner. He's in New York now meeting with NBC.
He's a good guy.
He's a producer, and see what new they have in mind to change. So that'll be kind of interesting. But Roger made mention today that he's looking to invest $2 to $3 million to change or increase the fan participation stuff at the Speedway. So we're not looking to make money. We want to do it and make it a better thing. It seems to me if he does that and people hear it, they'll buy tickets and they'll break even.
Well, an investor only invests in something to make money. So he will want to make money eventually, but to get there, I think, it will take some money. I mean, obviously an injection of cash into anything helps, but it's just a matter of how do you make it go the distance and end up making you money eventually. So I think he's going to do a lot of good stuff. I think it's going to be, I obviously have an inside source, right, within my family. We sit down at Christmas dinner and talk about the future of the sport. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen yet, because even Doug holds everything close to his chest because he's just trying to keep his job. Obviously, that would be nice. And he knows he probably shouldn't tell my mom or me, because we like to talk about racing. So yeah, I think it's going to be good. But yes, is it going to take some money up front? Absolutely. But does money help? Always. So especially in motorsport, if you put more money in there, we'll do something with it. That's for sure. So I hope that's good.
Well, I was told by a gentleman who is in the process of trying to put a team together. Now they're talking with sponsors, and it seems to be going well. The Rogers has told him, any help you need, we'll help you, because he wants to see more teams, I'm sure. He'd like to see a couple more teams, good funded teams, come and join the series.
Yeah, I mean that would help for sure, because when you see Andretti running 7 cars at Indy, I mean that's tough. I mean that's a lot of cars, and that's we need that to be split up within 2 or 3 different teams, right? Because you want to be able to trust a lot of teams to be able to get you a win there. So I think our teams in the series right now are obviously very good. I mean, I went to Carlin, who was a very new team, and I think there's a lot of great stuff happening there. But again, they need that funding to kind of keep that powerful force kind of going towards the front of the grid. So it's still a tough scenario, as racing always will be. But yes, there are a lot more positives, I think, now than there are negatives.
So what have you been doing? Last year you and Alexander were touring around the world. And
that was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
You missed, yeah. Last year I was just depressed and trying to figure out where I was going to drive.
So what have you been doing this year? Have you gone on any trips? You climbed any mountains with Zach Veach or anything?
No, I just only paid off debt from the Indy 500 2 years ago, just like 2 weeks ago. So I'm just starting fresh now. I'm ready to go. And I don't know, man. I've just been, training. I've been super happy. It's been a nice little last couple weeks. I've been trying to work with the team. We did some, we did some stuff before Christmas on trying to figure out, what this thing with the aero screen is going to look like, how I'm going to fit in it. What are we going to make new seats? I can't see anything out of it, so that's cool. And yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. And I'm going to Sebring on Monday with Renus, because Renus is testing down there on Monday. So Renus will be down there, and Sage is down there, and then I think Penske, one of Penske cars. So we'll at least see some on-track activity. I mean, I won't be out there, but it's going to be cool to at least smell the fumes and then be ready to go.
All right, now I got to ask you. You said the new aero screen. Yippee! I can't see. What do you mean? You can't see out of the car?
Well, we know that I don't like it, so I think I talked about it last time, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we've got to. Obviously, everyone's going to drive with it because we want to be IndyCar drivers, but it is interesting. I've been in the car with it. It's different for sure. I think Jay Fry is doing a good job at trying to listen to the drivers and listen to what we're saying, and they've obviously had a lot of experienced guys testing it at different tracks. But still, there's only been there's only 3 that exist. So there hasn't been as much testing as I would like to see, but I think it'll be fine. I think it'll be okay. I think it's gonna be very hot. I think it's gonna be really difficult. I think we're gonna run into a few more problems than we might think we will, but we're gonna just see what happens.
If you run into a problem, everybody else will have the same problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's we're all in the same boat in this situation, unless the guy who starts 23rd is going to be in a different situation than the guy who starts first when it comes to vision. So that'll be a little bit off, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those new things in our sport. The aero kits were weird. Everyone thought those looked weird, and it was crazy. And why are we doing this? Why do we have rear bumpers? Didn't hear anything after about 1 year. So it was all right, we got used to it. And, I think that's going to be the same thing now, I hope at least. But, hopefully after we all get to Austin and then everyone runs it, they'll have even more information to kind of implement before St. Pete.
I saw the news release that the first shipment is due, but they are only anticipating primary cars, enough for primary cars. Your backup won't have them. So you go put the primary in the fence, get in the backup, and you don't have that thing in the way.
Well, we'll see. Maybe you can just wrap it with plastic and see what happens. I don't know.
How different is it? Now you have driven for, as you said, all but about 2 teams in the whole series. Are teams different? Is each team different? Do they have, one team has one thing that they concentrate on and another team does something a little different?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Everyone does things a little bit differently. I mean, everyone, there's a very high level of professionalism in our sport. Obviously, there has to be, because this is the top level. You're competing for the biggest prize in motorsports, so you have to be at a very high level. But also, there are a lot of egos in motorsports. So you are thinking that you are doing it the best. So there's obviously, I've now seen a lot of different opinions on how you do that. But honestly, you can make things happen in different ways. I guarantee Penske cars get their speed out of the car a different way than Ganassi might or Andretti might. Because I've been in a ton of different teams, and sometimes we've made those cars all go fast, but in entirely different ways. So there are different opinions that will work. It's just a matter of the driver syncing up with the engineer and figuring out, okay, this is our package, and how are we going to make our package to go the fastest we possibly can? Because, when I was at Carlin, obviously I did not have what I just got out of with Andretti, which was everything. We had everything that you could ever dream and want in an IndyCar. But we were still competing for a win at St. Louis. So it was one of those things where you can still make that happen. It's a little bit harder, and it takes some work to get there. But that's the great part about our sport, is the fact that you could be with a Carlin and have a shot at a win, or you can be with Andretti, Ganassi, any team on the grid. If you can nail everything, you might have a shot at winning. Now it's a little bit not as consistent maybe as Penske or Ganassi, but the great part about our sport is the fact that it is quite close.
It's extremely close. In fact, as you and everybody that pays attention to the sport qualifying when you go to start the race from first to 24th is less than a second.
Yeah, I mean, this year was a perfect example. I mean, it was unbelievable. You look at I just got, for Christmas, I got the Indy Star grid lineup, and so I was looking at all the speeds, because I get that every year for my mom for Christmas, and I was like, man, there's like 2 miles an hour from second row to like last, and then we see Fernando Alonso didn't make the field. I mean, it's crazy to think that is the level that we're competing at now, which is very cool, but it's also terrifying because you're like, oh yikes, what if I'm having a rough day or something's a little draggy on the car and we're missing half a mile an hour and you're trying to fight to get in the field. So it's, I've been at both ends of the spectrum now. I've qualified dead last and I've qualified 11th. So it's like it's a really wild world when it comes to Indy, but that's why it's Indy, and that's why it's so cool, and that's why it's exciting to show up on qualifying weekend.
The thing that has always interested me is you can get in your car and you drive and you say, God, that feels great. And your teammate says, take my car out for a ride, and he gets out of it and says, how in the world do you drive this thing?
Yes. That happens.
Yeah, it's amazing. It happens a lot.
Well, I mean, everyone, certainly at ovals too. I mean, every single driver feels something different because when you're going that fast, you can feel just every piece of the car, and if something isn't right, it's almost blown out to a huge proportion because you're going so fast, and that's what kind of separates, the guys who are going to show up and be competing for a win every year, and the guys who struggle more often than not, because it's such a small window, and even some of the best guys in our sport will have a tough day. Like, I mean, Mike Hull's here, but like I saw Scott Dixon at Iowa this year. I've never seen a car more sideways in my life. Scott Dixon finished on the podium, and I was like, what are we doing here? Like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. But that, you still have to push through that. You still have to like figure out, okay, what's the best possible scenario we can have? Scott Dixon's won the championship 9,000 times, and he's still made it happen that day, which is really cool. I mean, I was a little lucky, but that's beside the point. You still make your own luck sometimes. So that's, again, a great part about our sport for sure, is just staying in the fight.
Well, one thing about it, Ed Carpenter Racing has put good cars on the track. So I think almost every year there'll be at least 5 to 6 different teams will win. So you got a shot.
It is really exciting. Yeah, I mean, when you look at it last year, I mean, not even Penske can say they got all their cars in the Fast 9. So it's pretty cool to sort of see that, and you're like, gosh, I hope that trend keeps going. I'd like to continue to be a part of that group, but they obviously know what they're doing. They obviously know how to make cars go faster on Indy, and the only variable is now the aeroscreen. So hopefully, we can get enough information over the next couple months to make sure that when we get to Indy for the first test, that we can still find the speed that they've had for years, and kind of just have a strong, stable month of May, and our car is gonna look really cool for it. So we're gonna have to make sure that it goes fast as well. I can't tell you what it looks like, but it's gonna look really cool. I'm not gonna lie.
So when is the unveiling of the car?
Well, we've got 2 cars to unveil. We've got the car for the season, and then the majority of the season, then the Indy car. So I don't know when we're gonna unveil the road course car. Probably COTA, because we have to have it ready for COTA. So we'll be on the track at COTA. And then for Indy, probably like right before the Indy test, like end of April. So
kind of interesting. And what they do with cars now, compared to when I first came up, they had a guy with a paintbrush painting them, and it took forever to get that done. So it's...
Now your paint better weigh the right amount, or else you're going to go too slow.
Yeah, that's the other problem.
And you better not use stickers, because those are draggy.
Yes, they are. And it's always interested me. When I first started coming around, when they go out to qualify, they'd cover up the gas hole and they'd put tape on this. I said, what the hell is that for?
Yeah.
That's drag.
Every little piece matters.
Oh, yeah.
I had a qualifying headrest last year. I couldn't move my face, but that was apparently faster. I hated it.
But you'll love it this year.
Oh, yeah. We won't have any wind in your face this year. It's going to be great.
Has anybody come up with an they have air conditioning for your driver's suit. Are guys saying, we may need these the whole season?
Well, I mean, I have not ever worn a cool suit, so we haven't tested those yet, but they have tested for sure some helmet venting and stuff like that, sort of some of the stuff like the NASCAR guys use. But yeah, that's still, I think, to be TBD. So we'll see. I mean, IndyCar's doing a great job. I mean, they're trying everything they can for sure, and I think there are some good options available. But yeah, we'll see what the final options end up being.
You know what I find interesting about Jay Fry is, having come from NASCAR as an owner and a team manager, it seems to me, and I kind of got this from a conversation I had, that he'd go in want to talk to the officials about stuff, and they wouldn't pay any attention. Now, when you see him, you got a question, he'll stop and talk. He'll even stops and talks to me. He listens to what you guys say, because you're the ones that make sport go.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have to give Jay Fry a lot of credit, because we were fighting for this Air Force deal to go our way, and I needed some help. I needed some, hey, like, I need this or I won't get this deal, and Jay really did help out. So I give him a lot of credit for for trying to make this happen. He was part of a military sponsorship as well with the U.S. Army and the NHRA or NASCAR or something. So he knows how important it is to kind of have that type of a sponsor in the sport, and so he was really helpful, and I appreciate it. He wouldn't respond to my text for a long time, but now he does. So it's pretty cool to get that now. So he's been awesome. Honestly, I wouldn't have responded to my text either back in 2017. So,
well, now that's not nice.
I've matured a little bit now.
I see. That's good. So you have a brother who was a world champion. How is he do? How did he do this past year?
Well, he had mechanical problems, just like racing drivers always have. Yeah, he was trying to go for another world championship, and I think the ski broke down, which is a shame.
Yeah,
but he got to go to Thailand again, so that's kind of cool.
Oh boy. Will he be on the competition circuit again this year?
I honestly don't know. I assume so. He's a pretty official guy, pretty official jet ski racer now. So if you find him, he was on, apparently Jenna Fryer. She sent me a photo of some lineup of him on TV last night. So I guess they were on CBS Sports Network or something last night. I was like, gee, I didn't even know that was happening. Maybe I'm a bad brother. I don't know.
Oh, that can't be true.
No. I got him a good Christmas gift. It's fine.
That always helps, doesn't it?
Gift cards.
Well, I know that as I texted you today, that I got a lot of emails from people. Is Conor going to be there? I said, yeah, as far as I know. He said he would be.
Yes.
So they're here to see you. You've got a great following, great backing. I know I speak for everybody here. Good luck.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. Thank you. It's going to be fun.
And the way Ed's cars run at the Speedway, you got a good shot at the front row.
Yes, that would be awesome. I would happily wake up for that early morning photo shoot. That's for sure. Give me one of those flags, line me up on the straight. I'd be happy about that.
All right.
Actually, anywhere in the top 9 would be awesome. So we'll just aim for that.
Yeah, with all your road racing.
Because that means I get to run at least like twice during the day, which is really cool. I like to drive.
Well, with all your road racing, making the top 6 every week.
That would be also cool. We'll see. Make those reds work.
You can do it. You can do it.
That's the plan.
All right. Conor Daly.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks again. I appreciate it. I hope Mike, there he is. Mike is here. Till he gets up here, I want to remind you that if you are an SVRA fan, you need to go to Speed Tour and get the magazine. Just go to svra.com and subscribe to the magazine. It is first class. It's great stories, great pictures. And some of the drivers that you knew in the past, they're still here. And they're running. And some of the cars you've seen before, they're running as well. So Speed Tour magazine, svra.com, and subscribe. You won't be sorry, I guarantee you. If you are looking for a vintage car, vintage Indy car, I got just a place to go to look. Or if you have one that needs to be restored, you can go to the same place. It's the Grant King Race Shops. They're located at 8155 Crawfordsville Road. You can give them a call, see what cars they have for sale, and then what they can do to help you restore yours. The number is 317-820-3595. Talk to Bill. He can tell you what they got and what they can do to help you make it yours even better. And if you want to take a tour of some shops, they have a limousine. They'll take you for a ride. You get a group of 6 to 8 guys or gals or both, and meet at one place. They'll pick you up, take you on a tour, and drop you back. You can also call the same number to get that lined up. The number is 317-820-3595. My next guest is a gentleman that's been here on several occasions, and it's amazing. As busy as he is and all the teams he oversees, when he has time, he does come in here. He is a managing general partner for Chip Ganassi Racing. Please welcome Mr. Mike Hull. In your time with Chip, you guys have got, 135 wins overall, championships, 500 wins. You've done everything. You get home at night?
Some nights. Yeah, when I started working, when you're young and you're in motor racing, you want the opportunity. And when the opportunity comes along, like it has with Chip for as many years as it has, it's been extraordinary.
Yes. Now, what did you start doing in motorsports? What got you into it to start with, and how did you work your way to where you are now, 26 years?
I was one of those young guys and young kid in Southern California. At the time that I grew up in Southern California, there was a massive amount of motorsports based there. That movie that just came out, Ford versus Ferrari, those guys were larger than life in Southern California when I was growing up. I was maybe a generation or half a generation behind them. But all the race shops were there. So my dad had friends in motorsports. He wasn't in motor racing. But I was one of those kids that they tried to broom out of the shops all the time. But I grew up there and wanted to race and started racing when I was young.
You drove?
I did.
How good were you?
It was pretty good.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
You still got some trophies?
Probably. They're probably in a box somewhere. But that was a long time ago.
Yes.
That's when we were talking about this the other day. In motor racing, it used to be that the trophies that everybody got had ears on them. You know, the trophy was just a cup with ears, right?
Yeah.
Now, promoters don't want to have trophies that have ears on them. So every promoter where you go to race, when you win a trophy, it's different from everywhere else you go. And Dario was a huge, or still is really, a huge Jim Clark fan. I was growing up. I idolized him. And he actually has a couple of sterling silver trophies that Jim Clark won in Formula One races. And they're like that. They're awesome. So, yeah, I got boxes with ears somewhere.
You were a mechanic? You were a crew chief mechanic?
I did all of those things, and I think that probably has helped me a lot because in today's age with racing, no matter whether it's in, let's say in the largest form of motor racing, whether it be Formula One, whether it be big sports cars, whether it be Indy cars, even drag racing for that matter on the upper level, mechanics today only do one job on the car, only work on one part of the car. They never learn about the entire car. They could work for 20 years on the right front corner of the car and never get anywhere else on the race car. I was lucky because I crossed those generations where you had to do everything on the car and you had to interact with the driver. What we call engineers today used to be crew chiefs on race cars. So I got to do all of that. Got to work for some really great people before I started to work for Chip, and yeah, it's a great educational background.
You don't rotate guys on the car so that if somebody should get hurt, you can move to another part of the car. The team that I worked for, they did that. They moved the guys around so they knew all four corners of the car.
Well, I think one of the reasons that people stay in a particular area of the car, and it's not that we don't move people, because we do from time to time, but in the back-to-back schedule that you have, whether you're in NASCAR or Indy Car, or Formula One for that matter, you could go to an F1 shop, you'll see exactly the same thing.
Right.
You put this group of people together. Let's say in our case, it's a total of 12 working people per entry. People that put their hands on the product, 12 guys. And when you have 2 days to turn around a race car, that's 12 hands times 2 times probably 10 hours. And that's what it takes. So if you have somebody hopping all over the place, you'll never get it done in a timely manner, and you will not get the kind of preparation that you really need. And that's one of the reasons why most race teams today have specialists for different parts of the race car.
You know, Chip has sports cars, he has NASCAR, he has IndyCar. Do you work with all of them? Are you involved with all of his racing operations?
I look after what's based in Indianapolis primarily. So that's sports car and Indy car. We're not doing sports cars this year. We're just doing Indy cars. First time in 18 years we haven't been in the sports car series. To be in sports car racing, first of all, I would say that we've been really lucky over the years. We've represented 3 different car manufacturing companies. Lexus, who is with Toyota Motorsports, BMW, and then Ford. And in order to be successful in sports car racing, you have to be a factory team. You have to have factory support. It's too difficult, really, not to race in that series without it. So we didn't have a factory program going forward with Ford, which we knew. We'd been with them for 6 years. So we're working on 2021 now, and we'll probably be back with a factory in 2021. In terms of IndyCar, I look after what goes on in Indy also. Last year I did 31 races between sports car and IndyCar racing. So it's very similar for me as to what we do in NASCAR. I'll probably spend more time going to NASCAR races this year than I have in a while. I used to go to some of them, but I just know enough to be really dangerous there. Those guys probably don't want to see me coming there. But I enjoy racing, and I enjoy that kind of racing very, very much.
So in other words, you're not in sports cars. Instead of getting a weekend off to play golf, you'll be down in NASCAR.
It wouldn't bother me.
That tells me that you don't play golf. You're not that good at it, so big deal.
We could talk about that if you want to. No. I grew up with a golf club in my head as a young kid, and I played junior golf until I started racing. And so I can still swing a golf club.
Good. I wish I could say I could. But I spent more money on golf balls than then chasing a club I threw in the water. So,
well, they all deserve to. Every ball deserves to be rinsed. So you're good.
I was good with that.
Yeah.
You guys have done quite a bit of testing with that new aero screen. Like it? Is it good? Is it going to be? Is it going to do what it was designed to do? Save the driver, still be able to drive the car.
Well, the visibility part of it is fine. Do we like it as a team, as individuals on the team? The answer is the short answer is yes, in all capital letters, because of what it's meant to do. It took IndyCar a little while to get it right. The first screen that we tested was not right. It didn't pass the frozen turkey test. That they fling sandbags and frozen turkeys at these things, projectiles. And when it got above a certain mile per hour, it shattered. But that didn't stop them from working on it with the next version. And I know the purists in racing dislike it, or they seem to. But what we dislike is drivers that can't walk away from an accident. And that's the reason we're doing it. You know, we were talking the other day about it, and somebody said, well, it's not really an open-wheel car. Why is that? Well, because the driver's protected now. Oh, so in the 70s, when they put a full roll cage on a midget, did that stop it from being an open-wheel car? You know, there was a reason they did that in the 70s and middle 70s, I think it was, and I think this is a reaction to people's lives who probably could have been saved.
And I think you're right. And I think it's needed. And I've had a lot. In fact, a guy just stopped me today. He said, "Have you seen the car with the screen on?" I said, "Yeah." "Where did you see it?" I said, "Well, the most clever place I could think of is a speedway." And they were running it. How was it? Actually, when you're looking at the car from the side, you really don't notice it. It's not something that's, you know, like purple and hit you in the head. It's there, but you don't really notice it. Clear glass, you're not going to see anyway.
Yeah.
So to me, it doesn't add or detract anything in particular. The only concern they've had about it is the temperature. When it's a hot day, it's going to be a little problem.
Well, they have a ducting kit. We were involved in 2 tests or 3 tests with them with the Aero kit, as well as several other people. And we continued to test with ventilation, both with the cover that's on the front of the car adjacent to the windscreen that has openings now, and there's NACA ducting coming, and there's holes in the nose piece now to bring air in all the way from where a driver's feet are located. And I think by the time we get to 100% humidity and 100 degrees outside, we'll be pretty good.
Yeah, well, you know, it's interesting. People kind of laughed when Tony George started with the safer barrier, the soft wall it was called. I ran into it the first day I ever saw it, and I said, that thing ain't soft, I can tell you that. But it's proven to be what it was designed to be, and I got to think the same thing with this. You know, once it gets perfected and the guys get used to it and everybody's fine with it, it will do what it was designed to do, and that's save the driver's life.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is the last version. You know, what happens over time with safety with race cars is that you go through versions of safety items. So the deformable structure that we run down the side of a monocoque now is not what we started at the very beginning with a deformable structure. You know, the radiators are now a deformable structure. People may not realize that with the way that they crush. So they take the first level of activity when you hit the fence, and it works its way all the way into the driver. And the whole idea with anything that you do is to reduce the impact level that the driver's body sees. In this case, if a tire is coming at you at 200 mile an hour and it deflects, I think that's a pretty terrific and positive thing.
Well, I think, you know, as you mentioned, you got to take your hat off. IndyCar didn't stop when they said, well, we got a problem, now what? They went ahead and they worked on it, and they've got something that at this point seems to be a good step forward.
The problem with this, and we've talked about this before, I think, on this program. The problem is that you can't foresee some of the things that are going to happen with race cars as race car design changes, and also the speeds. And it's a case study all the time. And if you don't react to the case study, then you shouldn't probably be involved in this sport. You should probably find something else to do, because you have to accept change. And in this case, safety has been a case study since people had a mechanic that rode with them.
Yeah. Now, I got as everybody may or may not know, Scott and Emma just had a son. Yes. And I read somewhere that Michael Andretti has already signed him.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he has first option. That's what we talk about today. We don't talk about signing anybody. We talk about options for young drivers. So if he has an option on him, more power to him.
Yeah, I saw
it may be his son that ends up running him, not Michael.
The rules change, I think, were necessary with the yellow flag and a red flag, for that matter. And it seemed to me now they're going to go back, which I thought Brian did. He was running it when they had an accident and a caution. He went back to how they crossed the start-finish line before the wreck. And they're going back to that again.
They're going back to the previous timeline, I think, is how they're doing it. Yeah, that's correct.
Timeline.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't take 15 extra laps to line everybody up. And I know a lot of fans say, geez, there's 3 more laps. Why?
I think the reason is, and I've never been in race control. I don't think I ever want to be in race control, frankly. But they've always tried to be very fair. Yeah. And so they used the Portland race as an example, and that would be an easy one to pick on, because you have the chicane at the end of the straightaway. You have all these cars going into the chicane. They're not going to funnel out the other side one by one. They're going to hit each other. So they had a massive scrum down there. Most of the cars got running again. So then now what they're doing in race control is they're trying to look at the video for each car. So if you've got 24 cars in the race and you've got to look at 9 or 10 cars, frame by frame by frame. Imagine how long that takes. So in order to expedite the restart or the formation lap for the restart, they just said, screw it, we're going to go back to the previous timeline. In this case, it would have been the start-finish line for the start.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know if it'll save us lots of laps, but it'll save us laps.
Right.
And that's a good thing.
There's nothing more exciting to buy a ticket, sit in a grandstand, and watch them under caution for what seems to me. And some of the races that I sit and watch, what's the holdup?
Well, I think a problem with that is a lot of people look like they're going out for a hot dog, but they don't come back. I think it's pretty important to have racing on the racetrack for everybody.
Are you happy with the series schedule the way it is with more street and road courses and ovals? Would you like to see more ovals?
Boy, that's a loaded question, Don.
Okay.
Because I'm sure a lot of the people in here are the same age I am, and they grew up being fascinated by oval racing.
Right.
I would love to have a more balanced schedule, but what has to happen is you have to have promoters or independent promoters that are willing to promote us. And what's happened is the street tracks and the road tracks seem to have a good collection of race promoters. If every oval promoter was like the people that presently are in Gateway, we'd probably have more oval races because we'd have people to watch us race. That's what we need. And NASCAR, frankly, for a long time has had control of oval racing. And IndyCar has not. And the IndyCar promoters haven't really lived up to what they need to live up to make it happen. And you see it with a road race. If we go to a road race a few times and there's nobody shows up, guess what happens? They fire them and we go to another place. And so that's really kind of what goes on with oval racing too. It's really no different in street and road racing.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, but you got to consider. I was told, well, we got to go to St. Pete. Look at the crowd. Well, it's in March. Where the heck do you think people are in March? In Florida. And since you tied up the streets, why not go watch it did it for? So it does draw well, obviously. Road America always draws. If they run RC cars, they'd fill the place. And Mid-Ohio, the same thing.
That's a generational place.
Yeah.
But, frankly, the other thing that's happened with oval racing, and I don't know how you fix it, frankly, with spec cars, and we don't want to get into that discussion either, is that spec car racing becomes processional. And it has become processional on a lot of the ovals where we race. The only time it's non-processional is when somebody comes in the pits and puts on a set of sticker tires. And for a few laps, they look like a superstar. And as soon as their tires fall off, then they fall off too, and back they go. And so that's the secondary problem that you have with ovals, is a lot of people, we went to Phoenix. First year, we had a fairly decent crowd there. Maybe 25, 30,000 people, which I thought was pretty good. And but it was a terrible race. We won it, but it was a terrible race. There was no passing. And that's because the cars are so equal. And as soon as the tires degrade, they become even more equal. So the really talented drivers cannot pass a non-talented driver very well without taking a big chance. And so you just wait to get them in the pits.
That's true. But the sad part, you've got Chicagoland, you've got Kentucky, you've got the other one I'm trying to think of, Kansas. And Kansas would be great because there's a casino in the infield now. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
To go back.
Yeah,
there,
they built that right after we left.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wonder, was there any connection there? Oh, well.
I don't know.
What is with Chip Ganassi Racing success? Why are you successful where other teams seem to struggle? Now, the series is to a point now where, any one of the starting field, for the most part, could win. And over a season, there'll be eight or nine different winners, which is great. But what makes Chip Ganassi Racing a winner?
Well, I think it starts at the top, and that would be Chip. Chip is an amazing person to work for because he really works hard to find out what you need next. And he's not afraid to go try to find it for you. So he always provides resource. We call it resource. Most people refer to resource as money. It's not just money. It's all the other intangible things that you need to win. And equally important is he understands drivers who have big hearts. And they already know how to win, and we seldom have to teach a driver how to win. And crew members that have tenure with us are really, really important. And we've worked really, really hard in a market where there's a lot of poachers active to keep our people working for us for multiple seasons. And as they've matured, they teach the younger people that come into the corral how to win. And I think we really work hard. Our process is to work really, really hard on winning every day, which includes at the racetrack, and getting it done every day as a group of people. And we don't really think about what just happened. And we really don't think about what's going to happen 3 races from today. We think about what's happening today. And that's what we work on as a group.
I found for my time on this earth that some of the greatest coaches in sports are not the world champions. They're the guys that had to bust their butt just to make the team. And Chip was a driver, but he had to work to stay there and to accomplish anything. And I think they bring that to the table and have learned the hard way what it takes to win.
Well, I think personally the best owners are those that have driven race cars. But then they separate themselves from that. Quickly because they understand what the driver needs, but they also understand what the team needs. And they understand the importance of the people that work on the race car from end to end. And the people that support the race car in the building, and they understand how important that the flexibility of all those people needs to be, and every one of them probably runs their race team like they drove their race cars, frankly. So they're all different, but they have that in common.
What has Scott Dixon got? I mean, the guy can. I mean, you know, I think back to a couple of years ago when he started last at Mid-Ohio and he won the race.
Yeah, we started that race from another county.
Yeah.
Literally. Well, whatever it is, I'd like to have some of it. It's funny. Wayne Taylor called me today, and pretty good friends with him, and some days that's hard. And but he's a great guy, and Scott's driving his car at Daytona in the 24-hour race because we're not running there. And he said, Mike, he said, I just had to call and say something to you. And I'm, okay. He said, it's about Scott Dixon. Okay. He said, he's amazing. He just gets in the car and drives it and gets out of the car and tells us what it needs next. And I said, Wayne, that's a really simple concept, isn't it? We don't, and maybe that's the answer right there. He doesn't make things complicated. He understands exactly what has to happen today. And the second thing that he does a terrific job at, because I'm with him on the radio and I have been for a long time, no matter what just happened, whether we screwed it up for him in the pits, whether we screwed it up with strategy, whether somebody passed him and he didn't like it, whatever happens, we get over it right there. He never dwells on it. He never lets that cloud his mind with what he has to do next. So he treats the worst possible situation with the best approach. That's really, really hard to do. You know, we've had race drivers that are really famous people that I won't mention, that have won races for us, won a lot of races for us. It took you days to talk them back into it. This guy, he talks himself into it quickly.
Well, he obviously realizes that being mad at what happened 10 seconds ago isn't going to help. You got to make up for it, and let's go.
Yeah.
And he does.
Yeah.
And they call him the Iceman.
He finds ways to continue to improve himself. And if you think about it, since he's driven Indy cars, which has now been 17 years, maybe?
I think so.
18 years? I don't know. 17 with us, I think. The formula's changed. The formula, IndyCar formula, has changed wholesale changed at least 7 times since he's driven Indy cars, and he's adapted himself immediately to each of those. So I think that's a mark of an exceptionally good race driver.
Somebody just sent this up from the peanut gallery. Scott Dixon is not full of himself, and that's true.
Yeah, he remembers where he came from.
Yeah. And how he got there.
But, you know, we have an owner, too, that makes sure drivers remember where they came from. So, and that helps, too.
I went up to see Jim Leo one day in the old Pit Fit building, and they've got the plaques up with various accomplishments and, you know, who's 1, 2, 3 in the various forms of exercise they do. And you know who was in the top of almost all of them? Scott Dixon.
Yeah.
The man must work himself to the bone. He's in top condition. And from the time that I first met him 17 years ago to now, he's a completely different guy. Emma really had something to do because he's very pleasant. He's maybe had a lot to do.
She had a lot to do with it.
I'm sure. Yeah. It's interesting, and he's a family man. And
well, he's as dedicated to that as he is to everything else in his life, and he seems to be able to afford time for all of it. A lot of us, frankly, including myself, we're very selfish people, and all we think about is our occupation, what we're going to do next, what we have to do, how we make it better. This guy, we have to do this, we have to do that, I got to be there, I got to be there. And we don't take the time like he does, frankly, to get it right on all levels.
Got an amazing group of drivers, crews. The owner is a guy that, in fact, at one time he was a part owner of the Phillies, I think, wasn't it Phillies?
No, the Pirates.
Pirates.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh Pirates, yeah. That enjoys a little bit of everything. Obviously, number one, he enjoys racing.
Yeah. Yeah, he's fun to go to a baseball game with.
Yeah, I bet he is. Well, are you ready for the start of the season?
Well, our season started the day after the last race, in our opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a laundry list of things that we needed to improve because, frankly, we thought we had a subpar season last year. Although some people would be really satisfied with it. We did win races to add to that total you're talking about. But we didn't win the way we thought we should win. And we felt like we let ourselves down, so we've been working hard to pull ourselves up since then. So the list hasn't gotten any shorter. And
I think the 12th and 13th is the first test at Dakota. I believe that's in February.
What day is Valentine's Day? 14th. Yeah, I think we're there the 11th and 12th, maybe
it's
12th? I don't know. We're going to make sure everybody gets home for Valentine's Day. That's important.
Well, it's always fun to watch you in action and listen to you when I'm watching on television. They come in. Sometimes you get to hear the conversation. So I enjoy that, and it's always. And how big a part does Dario fit into the program?
A lot. He approaches it just like he approached driving race cars. You know, he has a file folder on every racetrack where he's ever driven, and so every year he continues to add to that file. So he shows up with those file folders still to this day, and he works with the drivers. And his perspective on what's required is different than an engineering perspective, totally. And he talks the drivers off a cliff sometimes. Or he talks them into it sometimes. You know, the year after he stopped racing for us, we asked him to take this role. And we went to Long Beach to race. And Dario had always been faster than Scott at Long Beach. They had the same data. They had the same overlays with drive style. We interact in the same room at the racetrack, a big engineering office inside one of those trailers. So, and everybody hears what's going on. But Dario always had kind of an edge there. So he takes Scott and Tony Conor at the time. They walk the track and come back. And Dixon says to me that afternoon or the next morning, maybe it was Friday morning before practice, he said, Mike, he said, if I do what Dario wants me to do in that complex past the fountain there, I'm going to hit the fence. Okay. I said, we got a spare car. As if it's fast, if you think it's going to be faster, you should try it. We were on the pole there, as it turns out. And he said to me afterwards, I know Dario was telling me everything he was doing, but he never told me in that way before. Dario's been a big help to Felix. He was to Tony, certainly to Scott, and they were on different levels. And we have Marcus Ericsson now this year, who will be on his level, which we're going to find out what that means when we start running, and we think that's going to be good because, man, he's a heck of a guy already, just with the interaction in the building, the interaction with the people, the interaction on the simulator. He's a pretty special person, and we think he's going to do really well. So I think that'll be a good addition, and Dario will be a big help to him.
Well, I think it's good. I had Mr. Erickson here. Marcus was here one night. Very interesting guy.
Yeah.
And got along with people, really enjoyed him. So I got to try and get him back. So I'll have to start
he's back in town now. He's come back from Swedish holiday.
Goody.
So he's
Tell
back.
him, look out, I'm after him.
Yeah, okay.
But
he was in the simulator today.
I think when he picks up the pace a little bit, he and Scott could have a good it'd be good for both of them, actually.
Oh, I think it'll be great. Stefan Johansson represents Felix. And now we have Marcus Ericsson. So we have 3 Swedes. And we're going to put a sign up, we think, in the engineering office in the truck that only English is spoken here.
I remember it was a couple years ago when you guys won the Le Mans for Ford, and Edsel Ford was there. Yeah. That was neat.
That was really terrific, and
to have all the Ford family come out and you win the race. Oh,
and we've said this where we talked about it, I don't know if it was on this show, but Edsel went to, when he was 15 years old, he went to Le Mans with his dad, the Deuce, Henry II, and was there when they won. And he wanted to take his son, Henry III, Le Mans. And Henry III works in the company. He works. He's in Dearborn now. He was in the Irvine office. I don't know why he moved from California to Dearborn, but he did. And a really, really good guy. He'll make a difference for that company going forward. He's a pretty special guy. And we won the race. It worked out, and Edsel was in shock. And he didn't know what to say, but he remembered what it meant to him when he was 16 years old. Henry III's a bit older, but they got to experience it together, and so did we. That was a lot of fun.
Now they backed out. Any chance they'll come back? Or are they out of it for a while?
I don't know. If, some people say they backed out or they quit or whatever, but that was, for us, that was a 6-year project. It wasn't a surprise for us that they decided enough was enough. They accomplished exactly what they wanted to accomplish. We won that race, Le Mans, 50 years to the day that they had won their first race at Le Mans. And that project was in the 60s. If you got to watch it at all or you got to see it, whether you got to be part of it or not, I remember as a kid going over to Shelby's when they were located on it's kind of depicted in the movie, but you kind of have to know the history. In the you could rent a warehouse building where the freighter side of LAX is now. So by El Segundo Boulevard there, up that side, which is now General Aviation and all the air freight places, those were just warehouse buildings. So what Shelby did was, when they started the Mustang project in '65, they moved from Venice over to LAX, and they made a deal with the airport that after 10 p.m. they could run down the ramp with the cars. And that's how Kenny Miles started there, because he had lost his place, his own auto place, and he was a mechanic at Hollywood Sports Cars, and but he was sports car racing on the weekends, and he started racing in Cobra, and then he started coming down there and working on the engineering and the cars themselves. And then what they did in '65, they built 500 GT 350 Mustangs, so that car could be homologated also for motor racing. And what Ken did was he drove every car on the tarmac before it got a load on our car hauler. And so it was right there, right in the open. And so on the movie, they showed all of that, but that was actually, you could tell it was actually filmed at the Ontario airport, because it had the mountains behind. But then they kind of photoshopped in the restaurant at LAX there at some point in time in the film. But yeah, that was pretty cool then. Yeah, a friend of my dad's wanted to buy a Mustang, and we went over there. That was how I met those guys the first time. And he tried to talk Carroll Shelby into selling him a Mustang right off the lot there. It was fun to watch. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Well, there's a lot of history. I know I talked to Bill Simpson a few weeks ago when he was here. He had just seen it. He said, a lot of the stuff you see, I remember. It was fairly accurate.
He and I sat next to each other at the picture. We went to IMAX Theater and we watched it. And we're sitting there talking to each other, and he said, it was like Phil Remington. He said, nobody ever called him Phil. Everybody called him Rem. I said, yeah, I know. And a lot of the people that were depicted in the movie were all people we knew. We grew up around, and it was nice that they got some notoriety in that picture.
And incidentally, speaking of Bill Simpson, I talked to Jim Voiles, and in fact, he said, when I first talked to him, he said, it looks like the Voiles-Simpson comedy team is going to be down to one, me. So I said, when you come back from your hiatus in Florida, will you come in and we'll talk about Bill? He said, absolutely. So we will do a Bill Simpson thing here. Probably the first part of February when Jim comes back.
Yeah, I would say this about Bill. I mean, everybody in this room probably in some way interacted with him.
One way or another.
Yeah, and I think I met him in 1968 or 9, maybe something like that. And we were very adversarial, to put it mildly. And we never really got along for years. I mean, we just didn't get along. And he called me on the phone about 10 years ago, out of the blue. And I see who's calling him. Oh, my God. So I answer the phone, and he says, what are you doing? Working. He said, you got time for lunch today? I said, yeah, okay. And so we met for lunch, and he said to me, hey, he said, I have a lot of respect for you, whether you realize it or not. And he said, you've accomplished an awful lot in your life, and I know where you came from. We came from the same area, the same background, the same vicinity, and I know how hard it is to make it in this business, and you've done a hell of a job. I said, well, thank you very much. So I'm still waiting for the punchline, and because he was good at that. And he said, could we just get along with each other? I said, well, we could try. He said, here's the reason. I said, why? And he said, well, there's less of us all the time. There's less and less of us all the time. So we should try to get along with each other. And we did after that, and spent a heck of a lot of time together.
And people that, he was odd. I wish I was young enough. I'd love to have worked for him. He said, that'd be fine, except don't bring a lunch. You never know, you might not make the day.
Yeah.
But I don't think there was anybody much smarter. He's a smart guy.
Yeah.
I always got along with him for 30 years. I got along with him fine. I never
Well, and I thought he was doing pretty good, and it just didn't work out that way at the end. But
that's too bad.
yeah, I had dinner with him a couple of nights before it happened, and then I left town, and then I get the call. I was in L.A., and I get the call from Voiles. Told me he was in the hospital, and he didn't know what was going to happen, and I was a little surprised by that because I thought he'd come back out of the problems he'd had there, and everything was going pretty well, and he had proper care. He'd gone to the Mayo Clinic because he went there every year anywhere to be inspected. And he was in a treatment program there that made a lot of sense. And I would say one small story about Simpson. He and Voiles and 4 other friends, they would go to the Mayo Clinic together every year for an executive physical.
Yeah.
And they had the doctor for the stars up there, a doctor named Dr. Hay, and he has a lot of clientele in motor racing and other people. He's now retired from the Mayo. So they were all sitting around the dinner table the first night because the Mayo executive physical thing is a 2-day deal. You go there, they do all these tests on the hour, and some tests into the next day, and then if you want to meet with somebody, they tell you what the results really mean. And so they were all sitting around the dinner table, Voiles, Bill, and these 4 other people that can remain nameless. They were around the table. And one of them said to Dr. Hay, okay, you don't have to tell us what the numbers are, like the blood chemistry numbers and all that, but please, who's in the best shape here? Dr. Hay said, oh, it's easy, it's Mr. Simpson. And they all looked at each other like, what? This guy goes out every night. He drinks tequila, he drinks beer, he drinks wine. He does other things besides that. And he's lived this life where you didn't know if he was going to get to the next day. And so Dr. Hay said, yeah, I'm going to give each one of you a script when you leave here. And what it is you're going to have to drink 1 glass of Malargo on ice every night, because that's what Mr. Simpson does. And that's the difference maker right there. And he lived a great life.
I worked with a gal over at the when we set this the radio station in Brownsburg, and she went to some place for exercise. Said Bill was there too, and he made the instructor look like a chump. He said he could outperform her something terrible. And the first time he had a problem, he said, one of the reasons that I've come out of this now is because I'm in pretty good physical condition.
Yeah.
So, well, I appreciate your time to come in here and the stories. And I got to tell you, your #1 fan came out tonight to see you, Phyllis over there.
Oh, hi.
And I got to think anywhere you show up, if she's breathing, she's there going, hi.
Yeah.
Well,
I have to get her by social calendar, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. It's always interesting to talk to you and the stories and what's going on. And we wish you nothing but the best in the coming season.
Well, I appreciate coming here, actually.
Really?
Yeah, because there's such a great, there's a lot of electricity in this room, whether you realize it or not, Don, with the people that come here, because they're obviously dedicated to what we do. And that's a really nice thing. You probably don't all realize that, but you sense it when you walk in the door. So thanks for that.
Mike Hull. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. I want to remind you, if you haven't been over to the museum to see the cars, they're changing some now in the next couple of days. They're going to bring some other cars up from downstairs. So if you haven't been there, get over to the Indiana Motor Speedway Museum, Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum. Check the cars out. It's a good display. Next week, I think we're going to have, I know of a couple people that are online to come in. And I've also got the who I believe is going to be the president and CEO of Penske Entertainment scheduled in the next few weeks. In a couple of weeks, I'll also have a 3-time Top Fuel World Champion coming in. So we got some guests upcoming. So watch out on Facebook. And my website is back working, but I don't know how to work it. My friend Mr. Haynes has been keeping it for me because I haven't figured it out yet. So we'll be back next week. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching, listening. Until next week, good night.